What is up? Welcome to a very special episode of Mock It Like It's Hot. It is our second edition of the way too early mock draft. The 2025 season came to a unceremonious ending last night. And what better time while that season is fresh in our mind and that travesty of a Super Bowl is also fresh in our mind to talk about how we would draft these players heading into the 2026 season. If you rode with us last time, Sleeper's ADP is almost fixed and we have rookies. Let's get into it. Is up. Welcome to a special edition of Mock It Like It's Hot. I am your host, Ryan Weiss. With me, as always, Josh Hudson. Josh, before I even ask you how you're doing tonight, I forgot to drop the YouTube link in the draft chat for all of the lovely people drafting with us. Are you able to do that while we get this show set up, or do you need me to do it?
I most certainly can. Give me a minute.
All right. So while Josh is doing that, I will let folks know what we are doing here. I, Ryan, host a mock draft show typically from April to August every single year. Well, last year, we had so much fun with our Monday crowd that we did not want to let you guys go. So the second the season ended, we did a way too early mock draft. I mean, like the fantasy season. So like week 18, we did a way too early mock draft. And then a month later, we decided to come back post Super Bowl. Well, we decided to do the same thing again. And last month, the ADP was something. And by that, I mean, it was non-existent, but we drafted with awesome people who set cues, and we did not have one misstep in the entire draft. This time, Josh, we have a full draft room. I don't even have to draft. I'm loving it. I get to just host. It's going to be a very, very fun show.
Can't wait. I'm excited. I was going through and trying to set a queue, and I've got about 61 players. So after about round 6, it's going to get interesting for me. So
let's jump into the chat. Just a few familiar faces here. Vince Mapstone jumps into the draft. George made sure he got the invite right away. This is, I always get this is Joe. There you go. Joe. I think that's everybody. Glad to have you guys with us. Josh, let me do what I normally do here. So let me go ahead and get the draft up on the screen. And then I will explain how we are drafting today. I will get the draft started. And then we can talk a little bit about the Super Bowl and kill a little time while we get some picks in. So first and foremost is a 10-team draft. This is just about seeing how we're going to redraft the season. I will list everybody who is drafting with us. If you've never tuned into a show like this before, we do not grade every team. At the end of this draft, Josh will talk a little bit about why he made some of the picks he did. We'll probably take a look at another team or two. There's one person's team. I haven't seen this person in a very long time. I'm probably going to focus laser on her team just because drafting with Kira Wojtrowski is an honor that every one of you gets to participate in tonight. Love you, Kira. Glad to see you with us. So Josh, I'm going to go ahead and click start draft. You have the first pick, which immediately would have taken away one of my talking points, but I decided to change that talking point for today's show. So while Josh is doing the first pick, I have 1 minute clock going on. This is a standard PPR draft, 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 1 flex spot, no kickers, no defense, 13 rounds on this draft. But Josh, while we let the first 3 rounds go, and then I'll break down the first 30 picks and we'll talk a lot about those first 30 picks. But before we do any of that, last night was the Super Bowl, and it's no surprise to anybody Joe Zola is not on the show today. He's probably still in mourning. It did not go the way.
He's also on a cruise ship, so there's that.
Don't ruin this for me, Josh. But what'd you think of the game, Josh?
It was something, that's for sure. No, I mean, it kind of played out the way that I thought it would. I figured it was going to be a pretty defensive game. It definitely started that way with all the field goals. And then at the end of the day, Seattle made the play that we kind of talked about that maybe Drake Maye would make, right? Like, yeah. Darnold got the touchdown. They controlled the running game. I was very surprised that Kenneth Walker had the kind of game that he did, considering how stout that Patriots run defense was throughout the entire season and especially throughout the playoffs. But I'm not somebody that likes to take the Patriots have had arguably the easiest schedule in the NFL over the last 25 years, blah, blah, blah. Like at the end of the day, these are professional football teams. Everybody, maybe outside the Jets, have a good roster.
Yeah.
So you're going to run into situations where, yeah, maybe some games are a little easier than others, but they're all professionals. They're all good football players. So, and really what it boiled down to was coaching, right?
Yeah.
We talked last week with Mark Drumheller, and
yeah,
Mark was very much on the side that Seattle's coaches better than the Patriots.
Yeah,
Joe, obviously being the Patriots fan, push back a little bit on that,
and
then push back again when Vrabel wins Coach of the Year and Josh McDaniels wins, Assistant Coach of the Year. But really, Mike Macdonald is a damn good head coach, and he is a damn good defensive play caller. But what we talked about a lot was Seattle just has more talent, plain and simple. And that came to fruition on Sunday.
And Joe came to that realization pretty quickly as well via our group chat that the Patriots were, obviously turnstiles on the left side of that offensive line. Not much of
but it's also
rush.
2 rookies.
Yeah.
Like, let's not forget about that. Like, I'm not going to sit here and bash Will Campbell. Like, there's plenty of jokes out there.
Yeah.
The Route 66 joke was
Funniest
fucking hilarious. I'm not even going to lie. But, anytime you're looking at rookies, no matter how well they played during the season, you put them on the biggest stage, things are going to change a little bit.
Yeah, it can get a little crazy.
Yeah.
I do want to just quickly, for all those out there who think Josh is like this super nice guy and he's like, I'm not going to pile on to the Patriots having the easiest schedule. That was the first thing you said to Joe in the group chat, you bitter motherfucker. So I don't want to, when it comes to Joe Zolo,
do it to Joe.
I was just going to say, when it comes
to treat him like a little brother, he gives it to me. I'm going to give it back to him.
When it comes to the greater audience, Josh is such a nice guy. When it comes to Joe, it's like, does that hurt as he sticks his finger in his eye? So that's just how it goes sometimes, I guess. Josh, I know Kenneth Walker is the thumbnail, and I'm going to wait to talk about him for when he gets drafted. I think there's one other player we need to talk about for all the wrong reasons. When we did our last draft 4 long weeks ago, said there are 2 quarterbacks that have separated themselves from the pack, and that is Josh Allen and that is Drake Maye. Do we still feel that way after Drake May's disastrous playoff run?
Kind of. And what I mean by kind of is it to me, it's less about, he quote wilted under the spotlight. It's not so much about that. It's more so about the fact that the Patriots schedule is going to get exponentially harder. They went from playing a last place schedule to now a first place schedule, right? So the only real layup games they have the Jets twice, they have the Dolphins twice, and they have the Raiders. Everybody else is pretty solid opponents.
Yeah.
So I think that Drake Maye is going to be tested a lot more than he was tested this year. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you go from year 2 to year 3, like you expect him to get better. I don't think the rushing floor is going anywhere. But then it becomes, are the Patriots going to do more at wide receiver for him?
Yeah.
Because you didn't really have much at wide receiver outside of Stephon Diggs this year. Like, there's a lot of good complementary pieces. Like, Mac Hollins has his moments. Kayshon Boutte, I think, can take another step forward if he gets a little bit better as a route runner, but we know he can get deep down the field. Let me make this pick really quick.
Yeah, absolutely. You got back-to-back picks here. I think it's an interesting point because that has been a point we were making. And obviously, Stephon Diggs had been hit or miss. He certainly started the season very slowly, got better towards the middle. They never really had anybody who could play opposite him. Obviously, Mac Hollins steps up, and Mac Hollins got called back on the first touchdown. I can't remember because, it was the tight end who scored the first touchdown. A lot of weird shit happened in this game. So,
yeah, it was definitely interesting to say the least. But no, like, I mean, and again, I don't know off the top of my head how much cap space the Patriots have. Let me look that up actually real quick. But I know they had they were one of the top last year. They're sitting at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11th most cap space, about 37.7 million, give or take. So like they can make some moves, and there's going to be some options at wide receiver, whether it's via the trade market, via free agency. There's the ever persisting rumors that AJ Brown going to the Patriots. I personally don't think that the Eagles are going to get rid of him because there's just way too much in the way of cap ramifications for that to happen. But I've been surprised before. I mean, Howie Roseman has shown that he's not afraid to make a move if it's going to be for the betterment of the team. A lot of noise outside of in Philly right now is that with Sean Mannion coming in as former QB coach with the Packers, kind of a disciple of this like LaFleur, McVay, Shanahan system, that Devonta Smith, not AJ Brown, is set up to explode this coming season in this type of system. But again, if AJ Brown's there, he's going to be the number one guy. That's what he's paid to do. So, no
offense to Devonta Smith.
No,
AJ Brown is a one, plain and simple.
Well, and quite frankly, they both are. They're both really fucking good wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, Smith obviously has the BMI stigma, and it hasn't affected him much. But it's just when you look at the two in the same room, AJ Brown's the one.
Yeah,
so
I'd agree 100%.
Yeah, I was gonna go there with the AJ Brown rumors. You feel like, and we're gonna wrap up this Super Bowl discussion here in a moment. You feel like, Josh, while yes, the left side of that offensive line was disappointing, they are rookies. They're not going anywhere. You feel like the Patriots have a wide open hole at wide receiver, and that needs to be the way they go, either in the draft or free agency, plain and simple.
Yeah, 100%.
We're getting ready to wrap up the first 3 rounds. Let me just give everybody a quick rundown of how we do the show. And while I do that, I'm also going to give a shout out to all the folks that are drafting with us. I will break down the first 30 picks for sure. We're going to talk about a lot. This show really focuses a lot on the first 30 picks. We'll talk more about the middle of the draft. As I said, we're not going to break down every team. I'll let Josh break down his team. What I do like to do, since we don't talk about every drafter, I like to go ahead and give a shout out now in the middle of the show. So Josh is picking from the 1 spot. Our good friend George at 2, Joe at the 3, Shia at the 4, Lando Nice at the 5, Jafar at the 6. I saw Jafar was in the YouTube chat as well. Joseph at the 7, Vince at the 8, Kira Wojtrowski, the one and only, the great Kira Wojtrowski, my former co-host on many shows, picking from the 9, and Fox Princess, who is very active in our Discord, picking from the 10, and was you guys are doing really good in the sleeper chat as well. So Josh, let's go ahead and talk about these first 30 picks. And I have a question. I knew when you had the first pick, because this was the first question I asked last time, was who was the first pick, and you had the first pick in that draft as well, if I remember correctly.
No,
so
I was picking at the 8 or 9, I believe.
Oh, okay, then maybe I had the first. I had the first.
Yeah,
pick
you had the first
because
pick.
of how everything went. Yeah,
I was at 7 the last time.
So I answered that question. You just answered it with Bijan Robinson. We're not going to spend a ton of time on that. So let me run through these 30. The draft starts off with Josh taking Bijan Robinson. Jahmyr Gibbs goes. Puka Nacua, Jamar Chase, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Christian McCaffrey at the 6, Justin Jefferson at the 7. Joseph was not auto picking at that time. In fact, I think his auto pick started in the 3rd round. We'll talk about in a moment. Jonathan Taylor, Devon Achane, James Cook wrap up the first round. The James Cook manager, Fox Princess, grabs Amon-Ra St. Brown with their first pick of the 2nd round. Ashton Genty, CeeDee Lamb, Saquon Barkley, Omarion Hampton, Malik Neighbors, Drake London, Brock Bowers at the 2-8. That's going to matter in a moment. Nico Collins, Rashee Rice at the 2-10. And then Josh, after grabbing Rice, comes back with Chase Brown. You got Josh Jacobs with the 3-2. George Pickens, Trey McBride at 4. Josh Allen at 5. Jeremiah Love at 6. I almost said Julian Love. Super Bowl flashbacks. Jeremiah Love at 6. I don't know who C. Johnson is at 7. That I think is just a computer pick.
CJ Johnson. He's a rookie wide receiver coming out.
But that's a computer ADP pick, right? Like that, no one's taking this CJ Johnson there.
No.
I didn't think so. Derrick Henry at 3-8, Chris Olave at 3-9, Kyron Williams at 3-10. And in case you want to know 4-1, it's T. Higgins. Josh, I wasn't sure where I wanted to go with this when this whole thing started, but when I knew you were going to go running back, there are 2 questions that came to mind to me. And I want to start with the easiest one here. How many running backs, Josh, are you putting ahead of all of the wide receivers in this draft? Notoriously, Joe Zolo and myself, we rank running backs highly. And when I look at my own running backs, I think it's 5. It's only 4 before I'll go with the first wide receiver. For me, it's Bijan, it's Gibbs, it's Achane, it's Jonathan Taylor. I'm taking them before I look at wide receiver. Is it shallower for you? I can't imagine it's deeper.
I did 3. Bijan, Gibbs, and Devon Achane. Those are the 3 that I had above Puka, who I have as currently right now as my wide receiver 1. Again, I think it just boils down to usage, receiving ability, and ultimately trying to project out for the next season, right? I think your wide receiver position always tends to be, with some of the higher end wide receivers, a little bit safer, just my personal opinion. The volume obviously will go more towards your running backs.
Yeah.
But we got confirmation Matthew Stafford's coming back. I don't see how you can not put Puka Nacua at least in your top.
You were
3,
literally
right?
going with my next question. Stick with the running backs.
All right. That's fair.
So,
all right, fine.
I'm going to quickly throw, you already answered in the chat. I do want to throw Michael King up here just for the viewers' benefit. This is redraft. Most people would be doing Dynasty right now, but our gimmick here is that the season is fresh in our brains. How will we right now in February draft them going into the 2026 season? So Josh, you said it's 3 running backs before you would go wide receiver then?
Yeah.
And that brought me to where I wanted to start the show. We spent a lot of time the last time we did this draft on who would be the number 1 pick. And it was really down to Bijan and Gibbs. I took Gibbs, but Josh, in that month I have switched and I would go Bijan now. I wanted to go with who is your number 1 wide receiver, because Josh, I feel a bit out of place when I look at my rankings. I am putting JSN at number 1. That kid proved a lot to me this year, but I do have to admit, I did my rankings on January 27th. Matt Stafford was still up in the air, which he is no longer up in the air. So this is one that could easily change. So talk to me a little bit about JSN, Puka Nacua, and are we sleeping on Jamar Chase in this discussion?
I was going to say, I mean, a healthy Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase is quite easily the wide receiver 1, in my opinion.
And I do want to point out, folks, that they went 3, 4, and 5. Puka at 3 to Joe. Shia goes Jamar Chase at 4, and Lando goes JSN at 5.
So for me, I think I had JSN. I think I had him as my wide receiver 5 when I was putting together my queue.
Jesus.
I had Nacua, I had Chase, I had CeeDee Lamb at 3, and might have been 4 because I think I had Rashee Rice as 5. But yeah, I mean, and then you get into, your Justin Jeffersons, your Drake London's, Nico Collins, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Chris Olave's, those types. I do think that George Pickens makes a pretty solid case to be a top 12. I don't think he's as dependent, so to speak, whereas like T. Higgins, in my opinion, because we kind of had this argument last year, right? T. Higgins, had the big spike in the touchdowns, et cetera, et cetera. T. Higgins has never had a type of receiving season that George Pickens just had. And I think, to me, that's the big difference. Pickens can still put up the yards, even if the touchdowns make a slight downtick. You're not going to see 12, 13, 1,400 yards from T. Higgins, because that's going to be all Jamar Chase. You know what I mean? So, and again, that's ultimately why I also like CeeDee Lamb here, because, being in that top upper echelon, that's, to me, that's where he belongs. This is an offense that's going to continue to throw in Dallas. Maybe their defense makes some improvements. I would like to think that they would. Actually, let me rephrase that. I would not like to think that they would, because I hate the Cowboys. But, but from a fantasy perspective, a bad defense, they're just going to keep throwing the football, right? That's going to benefit Dak Prescott. It's going to benefit CeeDee Lamb. It's going to benefit George Pickens. So, and again, it's the same thing with Cincinnati and the Bengals too, right? That defense is historically bad. And, Jamar Chase continues to stay afloat even without Joe Burrow. He was the top 3 wide receiver this season. T. Higgins was the one that ultimately kind of took that step back without a healthy Burrow. But Burrow kind of goes up and down, right? Well, he was down this past year. He's probably going to be healthy all next year. Sign me up for some discounted T. Higgins.
Yeah, I want to throw Mr. T up just real quick here. Mr. T said, first of all, congratulations. They won their $200 league, taking Bijan at the 101. And this show tends to agree with rolling that same strategy into next year. And Josh, that's almost going to be I think we're going to see next year a very similar thing to what we saw this year. Everybody said Saquon, and we said don't do it. I think this year everyone's going to go Christian McCaffrey, and this show's kind of already put their foot down that maybe going Christian McCaffrey is not going to feel like the right move next year, Josh. We certainly saw the breakdown in efficiency.
Yeah, the efficiency was just god awful. And this is what I always say about Christian McCaffrey. It's so hard for me to fade him. Not because of the injuries. Like, I get that. I'm not somebody that I want to play fantasy football with the idea that, I'm banking on somebody getting hurt. It's football. Everybody gets hurt, right?
Yeah.
And to me, it's just you go out, you take the best players, you know what they can do. When Christian McCaffrey's on the field, he is the 101. Let's be honest here. So, like, if you want to knock him for the injury risk, I'm not knocking him outside of my top 5. I put him at RB5 because at that point, he's going to be a steal, or you know what? You better hit on those mid-round draft picks, plain and simple.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a similar situation to Saquon, Josh. We said Saquon is not going to return on 101. And he didn't.
Yep.
But he was still an RB1. And I think
Was he
for fantasy, yes. You didn't love, wasn't he? Am I wrong?
He was, dude. I think he was way down there, actually. Let me find this out real quick.
Okay.
You look at points per game, he was RB 15. Total points, he was RB 14. So no, he was not.
He was not an RB1. Okay. So Saquon was just a flat out bust. Josh, I think we're in agreement. I don't see McCaffrey falling that far. I'm lower on him than you. My most recent rankings, I dropped him down to RB8.
See, I have Amari Hampton at 8.
See, and so I was just going to get into, I liked a lot of these younger guys more. My top 4, Josh, like I'm taking them no matter what. That's Bijan, Gibbs, and JT. Like, love them. I have them ahead. I think this is where the debate happens. I love Cook. I love Chase Brown.
Yep.
I love Amari and Hampton with Mike McDaniel now with the Chargers, and that's where McCaffrey kind of slots in for me. He goes
Genty with Clint Kubiak. Love that idea.
Yeah, and so that's I don't even think I have Genty built into the show sheet, and I feel like maybe I am sleeping deeply on Ashton Genty, which kind of brings me to Kira's team. Kira building. I joked with you, Josh, that I was going to draft the 1-9 if I wasn't if we didn't find somebody, and Kira jumps in. She's building a Ryan team here. Devon Achane, Ashton Genty, and then just starts loading up at wide receiver.
It's almost like you guys have done shows together.
It's almost like we're both really good at fantasy football, and it's how you guys should draft. But anyway, I love the team she's building there, getting Ashton Genty in the second round. Josh, it's not a show with me unless we talk about spending a high draft pick on an elite tight end. And I had a whole set of talking points of how I thought this draft was going to go and what we needed to talk about. And that shit got blown out of the water immediately, Josh, when Brock Bowers goes at the 2-8. And then we have to wait 6 picks for Trey McBride to go off the board. Josh, I give this show credit, a deep amount of credit, for one very specific take last year. Last year, Brock Bowers was the can't miss tight end 1. And you, Josh, said, doesn't that by definition mean Trey McBride has more upside than Brock Bowers? And I immediately agreed with you and moved Trey McBride to my tight end 1 for my rankings. Are we just looking at the mirror of that situation going into next season? Is Trey McBride no longer this foolproof? Does Trey McBride not deserve the Travis Kelce first round treatment, Josh?
You can make the case for it. 100% you can. And I mean, I get it. He scored 102 fantasy points more than tight end 2 Kyle Pitts. Like, yeah, ridiculous. I mean, he was exponentially higher. But when you look at how the Cardinals were built last year, they suffered so many injuries to the running back position. They had no choice but to throw the football 40 plus times the second half of the year.
Yeah, when Jacoby Brissett came in, the offense, they literally passed the ball.
They averaged Trey McBride averaged 9.99 targets per game over the full season. So, Mike LaFleur just gets hired as the head coach. He has a previous stint as a play caller with the Jets a few years back. And now you're going in with, after having spent the last couple of years under McVay as the offensive coordinator, helping him game plan, all those kinds of things. McBride is the only real weapon, in my opinion, that we know definitively what he's capable of. If Mike LaFleur has learned anything from Sean McVay, it's that he is going to craft this offense through the talent that is there. Yeah. And the reason I say that, we've seen so many different iterations with the Sean McVay offense. We've seen it be heavy 11 personnel, the top 3 guys getting all the eats, and a running back seeing 80% workload. Well, last year they said, you know what, we're going to split things up a little bit. We're going to work Blake Corum in, and we're going to keep Kieran Williams healthy.
Yeah.
And then it became, well, we've got 2 really good wide receivers, and Devontae Adams is just going to be a star tight end and eat in the red zone.
And we're going to run all 3 of our tight ends.
And we're going to run 13 personnel fucking 50% of the time. Like, so this is what I know. Trey McBride is going to be on the field 100% of the time.
Yeah, he's not even.
But then it becomes, where does the big breakout Michael Wilson fit in, right? Are we finally going to get to see the Marvin Harrison Jr. that we actually thought we would see this year? And
Trey McBride did an interview with Yahoo and said, don't give up on Marvin Harrison.
Right? So there's so many different ways that we can look at what Mike LaFleur is going to do. And, you know, even looking at his brother, Matt, Tucker Kraft was the number 1 target in that Green Bay offense before he went down. So, like, there's shades of what we can expect, but I don't know that we're going to expect 160 targets again. And that doesn't make him a value, in my opinion. So if you think that, hey, he's the positional advantage, all right, cool. You know what? You do you. I'm going to sit down and wait at tight end. I'm going to take the guy who I just took here at the end of the 8th round, who gets the same offensive coordinator that just fed Trey McBride 169 targets, and that's Sam Laporta.
You and Sam Laporta. Now, I do want to throw out where there's a difference in this situation as Josh makes his last of his back-end pick. Last year, Bowers was going end of the first round. McBride was going mid-second to sometimes third. The value in McBride was that he didn't cost more. In this situation, Josh, you are betting on Bowers to just be better. You're taking him 5 picks ahead of McBride. And Joe in the chat brought up, we don't know what McBride's offense is going to look like. Well, that's exactly where I was going to go with Bowers, Josh. Very likely, new quarterback, 100% likely a new offense as Kubiak moves from Seattle over to the Raiders. That was confirmed this morning on a 5-year deal. Bowers now what in his 3rd offense and 3rd quarterback? Well, not even 3rd quarterback, 3rd offense and 6th quarterback in as many years, Josh. It's been a bumpy ride for a guy who was just electric as a rookie.
Yeah, I mean, look, Kubiak's smart enough. He's had, again, another guy that's had a lot of different iterations of his offense where we've seen a lot of heavy 12 personnel where I felt that, all right, JSN's going to get shackled a little bit because he's predominantly played in the slot, and then he's morphed into arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL.
Best all-around wide
yeah,
receiver.
Exactly, right? So, dumbass me, like, you know, what the fuck do I know?
You've owned it. I wasn't going to go.
But no, and that's fine. I'll own it again. But now he goes to Las Vegas where Bowers is the only target. Like, they traded Jacoby Myers. Like, Trey Tucker is, sorry, not a good foot. Like, he's very average. He's a jag. They drafted a couple of rookies this past year, Jack Besh and Dante Thornton Jr. We thought maybe they would have a little bit more of a role, but they never really got going. Will they take a jump? Sure. But, you know, Thornton Jr.'s role really is a deep threat option.
Yeah.
Guess who also plays that role, happens to be a free agent, and has played in Kubiak's system twice in the last 2 years? A guy named Rashid Shaheed. Could end up seeing him in Las Vegas here, right? So I don't think that really their number 1 guy at wide receiver is even on their roster right now.
That's how I feel as well. Now, knowing their game, Shaheed would destroy Trey Tucker. Shaheed is everything Trey Tucker has ever hoped he was going to be.
Yeah.
Thornton with that bigger body might be interesting, certainly within the red zone. But again, I agree with you, Josh. these were Pete Carroll's kind of scraps. It's not like they paid a lot for Besh or Thornton. I think we're very likely to see Kubiak go get his guys.
Yeah, and they have the most cap space, or top 3 available cap space in the NFL. So this is the team that can go through and they can completely reshape their entire roster, not even just their offense.
Yeah, and it seems like similar games. I just want to, not similar talent, certainly not anymore. DJ Moore would be an excellent fit for Kubiak's system in that kind of JSN role. That would be an interesting there with Moore, Mendoza, Bowers, obviously Ashton Genty, who you think could also be a big benefactor of this system.
Yeah, I mean, look what Kenneth Walker did the last month of the season.
Yeah, let's save that for a moment because we are going to move on to the second part of this draft. But before we do so, I would remind you, if you like what you're hearing, hit that like button. If you want to hear it again next week, hit that subscribe button, except not a mock draft next week. We are live every Wednesday throughout the entire offseason. This is a 51 week per year show. We usually find 1 week around the holidays to take off. But for the most part, every Wednesday, Josh, myself, and Joe Zolo go live. We're going to start getting into free agencies and rookies. We have a ton of guests lined up. Josh has killed the guest game over this past weekend. He used Super Bowl weekend to network, and we just have some of the best in the business getting ready to join us. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button if you happen to be listening on Apple, Spotify. Hit that follow button, and if you want to talk fantasy football with us anytime, not just when we're live, we do have a completely free Discord. I'm sure Josh is going to drop a link for you guys here shortly. It'll be in the chat. Jump in. Talk with some really, really good people. If you like fantasy baseball, Austin and myself play in some fantasy baseball leagues. We're more than happy to give some advice when it comes to that. Josh, as we get into the fourth round, I'm going to quickly read the fourth round because the player I want to talk about went into the fourth round. Again, I'm not going to break down every pick. As I mentioned before, the fourth round started off with T. Higgins, Garrett Wilson, AJ Brown, and auto pick at 4, Tedero McMillan, Kenneth Walker at 6, Bucky Irving at 7, Ladd McConkey at 8, Cortland Sutton at 9, Zach Flowers at 10, and
Zay Flowers.
Did I say Zach? What am I doing? Zay Flowers at 10. Don't know who Zach Flowers is. Lando Nice, Josh, doing us a little favor with the thumbnail here. I wasn't sure when we were going to fit Kenneth Walker in. Josh, I talked earlier about how Drake Maye's stock probably took the biggest dip in fantasy football, and you can see that in this draft as he is still not went, I'm now realizing. Josh, if Drake Maye took the biggest hit, Kenneth Walker took the biggest bump in value out of these fantasy playoffs. He turned it on before Zach Charbonnet gets hurt, and Josh, it seems unlikely we see Zach Charbonnet in 2026. If Walker's in Seattle or elsewhere, I think it's going to be a really nice season for him. He goes here at the 4-6.
Yeah, and I mean, he's still fairly young. I mean, he's going into a second contract.
Yeah, 26 years old, I think.
26. So. I mean, him and Breece Hall kind of hitting it on the younger side, especially compared with, when you look at like Travis Etienne, for instance, going to be 27. So I think that there's that obvious benefit when you're looking at someone like Kenneth Walker getting into, his next stop, whether, that stays in Seattle, whether, he ends up at a place where, I don't know, throwing Tennessee out there. They've got a lot of cap space, and, Brian Dable coming through, and we've seen what he's been able to do with the running back position. Maybe they decide to move on from Tony Pollard. I think there's a lot of stuff that really is up in the air at that point. I mean, just trying to go through and make this next pick.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were on the board. I was verifying facts for my next question.
But yeah, no, I mean, and I talked about this heading into the season. Like, I love the idea of Kenneth Walker just because he's so good with the ball in his hands. Yeah. Like, you get him on these outside zone runs, like he can use his speed. He's such a patient runner. I was talking, in our group chat, with you and Joe, and he had that one run where he literally just like grabbed the ball, kind of stopped, waited. Like, it's so reminiscent of Le'Veon Bell.
I was just gonna say,
ironically enough, they both graduated from Michigan State. So, like, and again, I was such a huge Le'Veon Bell fan. Like, he's somebody that you could split out in the slot. You can get him in space. He can do damage receiving.
They showed that one highlight, Josh, where he straight up was walking after he got the ball.
Yeah. And Kenneth Walker has that ability. You put him in a place where, he's got a quality offensive line, which, again, Tennessee has the pieces. It just boils down to, how are they going to be coached? How are they going to interpret Brian Dable's system, right? I'm just using Tennessee as an example, but I think there's a lot of wiggle room here where he could be a missing piece for an offense. Like we saw a couple of years ago with, the big free agent boom at running back, right? Like, Saquon Barkley changing teams, Josh Jacobs changing teams, Derrick Henry changing teams. And look what it did. It rejuvenated that running back position.
Absolutely.
And, maybe he ends up staying in Seattle. They've got the 6th most available cap space.
And that's
Zach Charbonnet dealing with an ACL injury. I've heard some buzz about them potentially bringing in Mike Kafka, who was the interim head coach and the OC with the Giants. And, if he ends up doing more similar things to what Dable has done in the past, I don't hate that. I don't hate Walker staying there. But again, it just boils down to, when does Charbonnet come back? Does he come back, right? How late in the season does he come back? We've also seen Kenneth Walker when he gets that increased workload where he struggles a little bit to stay healthy because he's taken that kind of beating. But, again, he's the kind of running back that he can handle a workload, but you don't need to run him up the gut 200 times. Like, get him out on the edge, get him out in space, let him do what comes naturally to a big play option like Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, Josh, I wanted to kind of give you a little bit of credit here because I know it has to chap you just a little bit. What we saw in the playoffs from Kenneth Walker had to be validating for you because you adored him.
It's also extremely frustrating.
Yeah.
With all the freaking shares that I had of Kenneth Walker going into this season.
Yeah, just what a playoff run for him. And I think Seattle losing Charbonnet and now losing their offensive coordinator, I think they kind of have to go all out here and make sure they hold on. I'm going to go ahead and I'll scroll the screen once round pick 13s are done. The draft ends at 13, so you guys can still kind of see 12 on the screen right now. But yeah, Josh, I think Walker just, what a playoff run. You mentioned it's been so frustrating because the knock on him has always been that he can't catch passes, but it just seems like all coaches refuse to use him that way.
Well, and it takes a really special offensive coordinator to be like, you know what? I'm going to target the running back position 23% of the time.
Yeah.
Right. And, with so many split backfields nowadays, like it kind of feels like you're lucky when it comes to fantasy football purposes. You're lucky if you can get a running back that even has 50 targets. So, he's come close to that. I don't think he's yet hit the 50 mark in any season of his career. But again, he's shown the ability to actually generate targets. Like he can average 3 or more targets in a game if given the opportunity.
Josh, the ADP didn't go where I wanted to go with this, but I'm still just going to ask the question. Eric Bieniemy back in Kansas City. I was wondering what it would do for Chiefs ADP. And Josh, it's been a weird draft when it comes to Chiefs ADP. Rashee Rice goes far higher than I expected him to, going to you at the 210. Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and obviously there's speculation Kelce won't be playing next year. Shit, there's speculation Patrick Mahomes won't be playing for parts of next year. They haven't even been drafted yet, Josh. So as of this moment, I'm glancing. I think the only Kansas City Chief that's been drafted is Rashee Rice. I imagine Worthy's probably in here somewhere, but maybe not.
He's still in the queue.
Okay. So the only Chief that's been drafted is Rashee Rice. Eric Bieniemy being back there do anything for you? Because we've basically said Matt Nagy has ruined Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, he looks so bad with Matt Nagy. But again, I think part of that too is that the GM hasn't balanced the salary cap constraints and Mahomes's cap-friendly contract the way that he should. Like he's invested in the offensive line. But you went out and signed Jawan Taylor, who fucking sucks and wasn't even good when you signed him. So I'm not even like I get the premise. Like you want to protect Patrick Mahomes, right? But if you're going through and spending the money on the wrong guys, then that's a cap management problem, really, because you're paying 35 plus million to, Chris Jones as the defensive tackle, which is great because he is good. But at a certain point, it becomes, all right, well, what are you doing for Patrick Mahomes, right? You're drafting rookies. You're putting younger targets around him and just saying, all right, well, hopefully they develop. who do you have that's developing him? Because right now it's nobody, and Matt Nagy hasn't done a good job with it. So you can blame, Andy Reid all you want. Maybe he's regressed as a play caller, and that's fine. I'm not of that mindset yet. I just think that they did the same thing when they drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He fell in love with the idea of what he could be and completely glancing over his limitations.
Yeah.
Kind of did the exact same thing with Xavier Worthy. You fall in love with the intangibles of what he could be. Maybe he could be what you had with Deshaun Jackson. Maybe he could be what you had with Tyreek Hill. But if all you're doing is falling in love with one trait that they have, i.e. speed, you're overlooking he's not a quality route runner. He gets thrown off his routes very easily. He's not that great of an athlete. Declining to do the shuttles and the agility drills in the combine simply because you ran a 4.21 40. That's basically saying I'm okay getting paid to run fast.
Yeah. Josh, it's time for me to make a confession.
Okay.
Vince Mapstone has been my burner account this entire time. I still believe in CEH. I don't care what anyone says. Vince, you and I don't play in many leagues together. I believe we're in the listener league, and that's about it. But Josh knows, having been in so many dynasties with me, that I have held Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I was not an early adapter on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I was the recycling guy, Josh. When everybody started dropping him or giving him away, I bought. Now, I don't believe I have any more of him. So Vince is not my burner. I have moved on. So Vince, if we were in dynasties, I'm glad to know that there's a buyer out there for all of my CEH scrap. I find that hilarious. Where do I want to go with this, Josh? I had a plan here, and I'm gonna, guys, we're gonna get to all the questions in the chat. I want to be very, very clear about that. Just so you're aware, Josh, Vince was not happy with your draft strategy of stealing everybody from his queue.
Sorry. Speaking of, real quick, Vince, I just need to find out because I haven't heard from you yet. Did you get the AJ Green jersey from the Gods and Goddesses tournament? I need to know. So drop that in the chat for me.
Drop it in the chat. And then I wanted to throw George up here. It's going to cover our faces up because it's a big comment. But Josh, sometimes I get away from what this show is all about. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this show, Josh, was a few years back, a lot of Twitter heads said the mock drafting was dead and there's no reason to mock draft anymore. And I heartily disagreed. And Josh, George brings up one of my favorite ways of using mock drafting. When you are early in your rankings process, Josh, you've known I've done this for years, that I play the game of I have my rankings, but then I look at the two players and say, well, who would I draft? George ran into that in real time. He knows that his rankings have changed over the last month because when he was looking at this draft board, it's about who he would draft. And Josh, obviously you and I do a lot of projections together, but there's still something to, the numbers might play out this way, but numbers don't always bake in floors and ceilings and red flags and green flags. And sometimes you just have that gut feeling on a guy you just need to get on your team.
Yeah. And I also think too, I mean, when we're doing this now 5 weeks after we did the first one, now we've got OCs in place. Yeah. We've got new head coaches in place. So there's a certain level of projecting based on how these guys fit in these new systems, right? I mean, we had 20, I believe when it's all said and done, because I know that obviously Seattle's looking for an offensive coordinator. I know technically the Rams are, even though the scheme is staying exactly the same. But I think all told, it's going to be 21 teams are going to have new offensive coordinators. That's a lot of changeover in the NFL. Now, obviously, some of these changes aren't really changing scheme because it's the head coach that's calling the plays, but that's still a lot of influence that will change things up. I mean, we talked a little bit earlier with Eric Bieniemy coming in now as the OC coming back to Kansas City. Matt Nagy had his way of doing things, and his way sucked. Let's call a spade a spade. When Eric Bieniemy was there, the running game was just better with Kansas City because he's a former running backs coach. Exactly. So, they relied a lot on the athleticism of Tyreek Hill and obviously the youth of Travis Kelce. They don't have either of those things there right now. So then it becomes, all right, we've got to start getting back on track with this running game. Kareem Hunt's a free agent. Isaiah Pacheco's a free agent. There's a lot of talk that they might be one of the landing spots for the top running back in this draft, Jeremiah Love out of Notre Dame at the 9 spot. There's a lot of things that can change the landscape for the Chiefs, right? It's the same thing with a lot of different places here.
Yeah.
We talked about Mike McDaniel going to the Chargers. We love Amari Hampton in this system, right? You got Bobby Slowick, the former Texans offensive coordinator, coming in now with the Dolphins. How is that going to affect Devon Achane and his upside and what we were able to see from him this year? Drew Petzing going from the Cardinals to the Lions. How does that alter things? I already talked about how much I love the idea of Sam Laporta this year. There's so many different nuances that go into these changes, and that's why these mock drafts can be really good over sometimes a 2 to 3 week period. Sometimes it's a 4 to 6 week period, right?
Yeah, that's using these early mocks can, even this early in the season, there are things you can glean, and I find it interesting. And Vince mentions, Josh, that he did
Appreciate that.
Get the jersey life just kind of
good confirmation. I was a little worried because we sent it halfway around the world. So
yeah, want to make sure we're getting the most out of our shipping,
right?
Josh, let's wrap up the middle of the draft. There's some interesting questions about a few players towards the end of the draft, but the middle of the draft is an interesting area for fantasy managers. Josh, it's the tight end dead zone. And after we saw Trey McBride go at the 3-4, so Brock Bowers went at 2-8, Trey McBride goes at 3-4. Nobody sniffed a tight end for 3 rounds. And Josh, in a way, I think that helps the dead zone. When there aren't guys going in 4 and 5, I guess it was only 2 rounds. When there aren't guys going in 4 and 5, but even Warren goes at 6-1 and then not another tight end goes till 7-5. But Josh, first I just wanted to ask you about the tight end dead zone, because there are some very interesting names in the tight end dead zone. And if it's starting in round 6, are we as worried? Because you got Warren, who had a decent rookie year, Loveland, who came alive, Tucker Kraft, who I know you love, and you've already professed your love for Sam Laporta. Harold Fanning goes a few picks later. Josh, the tight end dead zone is an interesting thing this year because it's so late, at least in these early mocks, that there still might be some value there.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some value, but I also think too, like we're hyping up some of these rookies like Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, Harold Fannin. How many times do we see these guys pop in their rookie year and then come back down to earth their second year, right?
Enormous step back.
So, I would be willing to bet that at minimum, one of those guys becomes the prototypical dead zone tight end.
Yeah.
Based
on what we learned episode, Josh, statistically, 2 or 3 of those guys are going
correct.
To be the dead zone tight end.
Kyle Pitts going in the 9th round there, like, he was the tight end 2 overall this past year. He's a free agent. Maybe he changes teams. I love the idea that he stays in Atlanta because we've seen how the kind of work that Kevin Stefanski has done with tight ends. David Njoku is a free agent, already said that he's probably going to test free agency here. Maybe there's a reunion with Njoku in Atlanta with Stefanski, right? So there's a lot that I think can work in some of these guys' favors. We talked a little bit in a previous episode about Dalton Kincaid. Like, I think that he's primed for a big leap, especially with the state of that Buffalo Bills wide receiver room. Like, he has the opportunity to be arguably the best weapon there.
Yeah.
And that could launch him into the top 6 among fantasy tight ends, and him going in the 12th round. Like, that to me is the kind of value that I want at the tight end position. So, I think the position in and of itself is interesting because, again, you see a lot of these guys with upside that are really talented, but we've seen in the past offensive coordinators that just are very hesitant to utilize the tight end position in the way that we want them to use the tight end position as that mismatch. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Josh, I'm gonna follow up on that question, but we got a question over on Twitch that is an actual fantasy league trade question. So I'm going to give them a little priority here and just get them up on the screen right now. Modify season is over on Twitch. Would we trade Cam Ward straight up for Sam Laporta in a super flex dynasty where you are required to start 2 tight ends. So they have Brock Purdy, they have Matt Stafford, they have CJ Stroud, they have Tua Tagovailoa. So Josh, they are trading their youngest asset for a decent tight end, but being required to start 2 tight ends makes this wild.
I think there's definitely, it's the easiest way for me to word this. This seems a lot more fair on the surface than I think it would be any other time, right?
Yeah.
Like with Superflex,
any other Superflex, you do not discuss trading a quarterback for a tight end.
Now, if this were like, I have to start 2 quarterbacks and 2 tight ends, I'm going to lean Cam Ward. But we've seen
sometimes you're better off not
kind of exactly. Sometimes you're better off not starting that second quarterback, right? I would be very curious to find out, how many do you have to start in your lineup, right? Like clearly it's super flex, so that's 2 spots. You're starting 2 tight ends, that's 2. Like
they
is it
did
start
mention
10, is it start 11, start 12? How many teams are in the league? That would play into it as well.
They did mention they are starting Trey McBride.
Okay.
They're likely losing Kelsey, and then they have the new Ferguson at tight end, Terrence Ferguson out there for the Rams, who kind of failed to win the job this year, but didn't have a terrible season.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you get Sam Laporta and pair him with Trey McBride, like that is your definition of a positional advantage in a start 2 tight end league, in my opinion.
Yeah, if this is at least a 10-person league, if this is anything other than an 8-person league, Josh, starting Laporta and McBride, it's a 10-team league, have to start 11 players total. Okay. So we know it's the 2 flex spots, the 2 tight end spots. So we're talking about 7 running backs and wide receivers, which is in a 10-team league. That's not hard.
Yeah, I mean, the upside here is that you do definitely get Stafford for 1 more season, right? So you know that you have that in the back. And I think that when you have Stafford in that role and you're looking at moving a young asset like a Cam Ward, it becomes, I'm playing for a championship.
Well, plus it gives him the flexibility this year, Josh, with maybe a 3rd and a 4th round pick of grabbing some of these lesser known quarterbacks and seeing if any of them are like Tyler Shuck. So
yeah, and that's 100% fair. I mean, look, I don't love the idea of getting rid of Cam Ward, mostly because I've had a lot of reservations with CJ Stroud over the last couple of seasons. Certainly don't love Tua. Like he's kind of been relegated, in my opinion, now as like a QB3 in Dynasty.
Yeah.
And really, I think CJ Stroud is border point.
Yeah.
So like your starters here are Purdy and Stafford.
The only thing I would try to do, Josh, I would rather move Stroud.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
Certainly Tua.
Yeah.
If you
nobody's going to bite on Tua though, that's the problem.
Exactly. If you could counter Tua for shits and giggles, Stroud, and I love this shotgun aspect, send them both so they feel like they have a choice, and their choice is not taking Cam Ward off of your roster.
Yeah, I would say I would much rather have Cam Ward, especially with Brian Dable, over CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Look, again, it's not a bad trade by any means. Like,
no, I think you're making this trade regardless.
You're making the trade regardless. Again, my preference would be if I could move, even if it's like package Stroud and a second for Laporta, I'm fine with that, right? Like,
yeah.
But Ward for Laporta straight up in this type of format, I'm perfectly fine with.
Yep. I think that makes sense. So, Josh, before we talk about a couple of interesting players towards the end of this draft, I did have my traditional game of keep, trade, cut, and it just so happenly played around these rookie tight ends that got so much love on the show today. Way back at the beginning, Mr. T says, what about Harold Fannin with Njoku testing the free agent waters? And then immediately some of the other chat jumps in and says a lot of the exact same thing. Josh, my keep, trade, cut are last year's rookie tight ends. And you said that 1, 2, or maybe all 3 of these guys are the dead zone. I'll be interested to know how you are keep trading and cutting Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, and Harold Fannin Jr.
Oh, all right. This is going to be interesting simply because my answer is probably not going to be the way that everybody else would go. As much as I love upside from the tight end position, I also love consistency. And there's a very underrated aspect of consistency when I know what I'm getting from targets, catches, yards per catch. even if the touchdowns aren't necessarily as high. So I'm going to keep Tyler Warren for that exact reason. Okay. Because he showed this year how he's going to fit in that offense, especially with all of the question marks around the quarterback position, all of the, question marks around Michael Pittman, right? I think that Tyler Warren, especially having been a first round pick this past year, probably has the safest role of all three of these guys.
I think that's fair.
Okay. I'm going to trade Colston Loveland simply because I've seen him ranked as high as tight end 3. Give me the maximum value, right?
Yeah.
I think in terms of explosiveness, he is the best of these 3. And I don't think it's particularly close.
It's not.
And then begrudgingly, I'm going to cut Harold Fannin because I don't know what the fuck they're getting at the quarterback position.
Or the offensive coordinator position.
Or, yeah, well, I mean, like, we know what Todd Monken's capable of doing, but we've seen good Todd Monken offenses, and we've seen really bad Todd Monken offenses.
I mean, Todd Monken
that just makes Fannin the complete wild card, in my opinion.
It really does. And immediately when Monken was hired, Josh, I got into our group chat and said I was down on Fannin, and you gave counterpoints on why you're up on Fannin. Vince Mapstone has actually my answer: keep Loveland, trade Fannin, cut Warren. Cutting Warren is tough. Don't get me wrong. I just think the news around Fannin right now makes him tradable. Josh, the first thing I always look for is who's the highest trade value, and I think the news with Njoku. People are excited about Fannin. I have Fannin in a lot of leagues. I might be shopping him this week. Someone in the chat may have also been Vince, third co-host tonight. Aronde Gadsden doesn't make it because the keep trade cut can only have 4 players. He goes super late in this draft, Josh. So what a year for rookie tight ends. But the question becomes, can any of them repeat? And we just don't know is what it really comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, Loveland, being in an offense that clearly is going to spread the football around a lot, definitely makes him more volatile, in my opinion. And again, this is why, I'm perfectly fine taking safe options at the tight end position. Like, give me volume. Like, Tyler Warren, I believe, was second among all tight ends this season in targets. Yeah. Like, I'll take that. Like, that's very Zach Ertz-esque. Were you ever mad about rostering Zach Ertz in his prime? No, at all. So I'm perfectly fine with that outcome. I think there's more volatility with Loveland and Fannin. Loveland's simply being there's more weapons on that offense. So there's going to be a lot more ebbs and flows. But I also think, too, that he probably has much more in the way of spike weeks than any of these guys. And then, of course, Harold Fannin, just as I mentioned before, like, I mean, does anybody really trust, quote, Pro Bowl quarterback Shedeur Sanders? Because I certainly don't.
Josh, as we move into what I thought was the back end of this draft, I'm noticing some of the most interesting picks I've seen in quite a long time. I thought both of these guys were going to fall outside of round 9 into the double-digit rounds. 2 guys who came on to end the season, Parker Washington, Michael Wilson, go at 5'3" and 6'3", Josh. Are we betting on these guys to go into obviously an entirely new offense for Michael Wilson? Parker Washington with far more competition. We're going to talk about that competition for our last player of the show. Are you expecting either of these guys to come close to repeating next year, Josh? Because at these draft costs, they better repeat and more.
Man, I'll tell you what, if Parker Washington has that kind of value, I've got some dynasty shares.
I mean, Josh, really quick. Went 13 picks ahead of Amika Buka as Michael Wilson goes 3 picks ahead. Yeah. They go 2 rounds ahead of Brian Thomas Jr. Obviously, rookies are harder to judge, but Mekhi Lemon goes at 78. Carnell Tate goes at 84. Some wild picks here, Josh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say out of those 2, I would say Michael Wilson probably has the best chance to
new offense, likely new
to
quarterback.
Succeed there. Yeah, new offense, new quarterback. Likely new quarterback. I don't know. LaFleur is saying the right things when it comes to around Kyler Murray as the quarterback, but obviously time will tell there. But I mean, really, just what version of Marvin Harrison are we getting? We still haven't seen the version that we wanted or thought we were going to see when he was the 4th overall pick in the draft a few years back. So, Michael Wilson this past year has 1,000 yards. Marvin Harrison still has not done that in 2 seasons. So, I'm not going to sit here and say that, Michael Wilson is the wide receiver 1 on the Cardinals, but, going off of what I was talking about with LaFleur, and if he learns and takes anything from Sean McVay, it's the ability to craft your offense around the talent that you have. And Michael Wilson showed talent. He 18, 15 target games. Like, he was a legitimate wide receiver 1. You pepper him with targets, he can do the damn thing. And he was operating as the team's wide receiver 1 because Marvin Harrison wasn't available.
Yeah.
So is there something to be said for that? Sure. I mean, I think it's a lot of garbage time, but prevent defenses going into it as well. So I'm expecting some regression to the mean a little bit when it comes to Michael Wilson. But when you're putting up numbers like that, it's hard to ignore is really what it boils down to. Parker Washington,
3rd round pick,
to me, benefited so much from attention being paid elsewhere.
Yeah.
And really his breakout just shows the coaching staff that Travis Hunter belongs on defense. They don't need him on offense.
Well, that kind of brings me to the last point I wanted to make, Josh. First, I'm going to throw Joe on the screen. It just says Brian Thomas is trash and Parker Washington's going to be a decent fantasy wide receiver too. And shout out to our great friend Millie. Always a pleasure to have on Monday, who comes in hot, bashing the thumbnail, saying he doesn't care. He's still not drafting Kenneth Walker next season. But Josh, the player you alluded to was the last player I wanted to talk about before we got into you breaking down your team. Travis Hunter. The world seems to have forgotten about him, and maybe you're right. Maybe he's just a defensive player. Someone said he's the underdog wide receiver 60 right now. Yes, it is wild that we are coding underdog ADP on February 9th, the day after the Super Bowl, but we're degenerates. You're all here watching right now. Josh, you're actually perfectly covering him up. He goes at 13-3 to Joe Ortiz in this draft. Joe Ortiz with a very, very Jacksonville oriented team, as he got Travis Hunter, Brenton Strange, and Parker Washington. Josh, is Hunter a guy, obviously, as someone who paid way up for him last year, very disappointed, and I've pointed this out multiple times between the two of us. Certainly, Josh, I'm the IDP guy. He didn't pay off as a corner, and that's a problem. Now we go into a season where, as you just brought up, he all of a sudden becomes expendable to this offense. Does that make him persona non grata for fantasy football?
Yeah, I mean, I think you also have to bake in. I mean, Trevor Lawrence coming off of a career season, he's likely to regress.
Yeah,
too.
Vince actually just said that as well.
So, for as dynamic and potent as the Jaguars offense was this past season, are they going to be able to repeat it? I mean, that's to me a legitimate question. I had the same questions about Baker Mayfield going into this season, and he struggled, right? And obviously there was a lot of injuries that went around to that too, and switching offensive coordinators and all this kind of stuff. Obviously Liam Cohen isn't going anywhere, so there's still that opportunity that, hey, they can repeat. But much like the Patriots, now they're going to be playing a first place schedule.
Yeah,
competition now gets more difficult.
Yeah,
so what version of Trevor Lawrence did we get? Like, it's kind of the same thing with Sam Darnold too, right? Like, we saw it last year. It's like, okay, what's he going to do for an encore? Well, he went out and he did the damn thing. So at a certain point, okay, maybe now we believe Sam Darnold. Are we at the point where we feel like we can believe Trevor Lawrence? And if the answer is yes, how much talent is he going to be able to make fantasy relevant? Because it doesn't take a lot for a tight end to be relevant in fantasy. All they got to do is score touchdowns, right? If that's Brenton Strange's role, okay, cool. But if we're relying on him for volume because he only scores 4 touchdowns, now it becomes, all right, well, some of these wide receivers are falling off.
Yeah.
We've seen good Brian Thomas Jr. We've also seen really fucking shitty Brian Thomas. Maybe the most consistent guy in this offense is Jacoby Myers. And if that's the case, to me, that takes Travis Hunter out of the equation because they play the same position. So I don't know how Parker Washington's going to fit in that conversation. I don't know that it's worthy of the 5.3, but he did string together 300-yard games to end the season.
Yeah,
that's nothing to shake a stick at. So
yep, where the whole world kept waiting for Brian Thomas Jr. to take back over, and it just never happened. So
exactly.
All right, folks, that's going to wrap up the talking about specific players, but this is a mock draft show. We have to
before you get to me. I let's cover JFAR's because he did.
I was going to do it last, but
okay,
yes,
that's fair.
I was going to do it. No, we'll go JFAR first.
Yeah.
So I didn't draft.
That's Lando. Next one.
Oh, sorry. I didn't draft a team, so we'll go ahead and take a look at somebody else's team. JFAR drafts much how Ryan Weiss would draft Josh. 3 running backs to start the draft: Christian McCaffrey, Amari Hampton, Jeremiah Love. I'm actually happy with these guys. I actually have Hampton ahead of McCaffrey, so if you flip those two, the draft.
I was about to say. I mean, I love the start there. I mean, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities that Jeremiah Love finishes as an RB1. I think the biggest mistake that we as an industry made last year with Ashton Genty is we were valuing him too high as a RB1, right? Like he finished as as the overall RB11. It certainly didn't feel that way.
Yeah.
But, volume and inefficiency, how's that really any different than Christian McCaffrey, right?
Yep.
And if they don't get a wide receiver 1, he's probably going to be the second most targeted player on that offense.
And then much as I do, Josh, after you stock your running back room, you need to then scattershot wide receiver to make sure you have starters. This is a start 3 wide receiver league, Josh. So it'd be Tedero McMillan, Devontae Adams, who we now know has Stafford back. Jameson Williams, I'm obviously not the biggest fan. We'll come back to Quinshon Judkins. Backs that up with DK Metcalf and Mike Evans. Again, I promise you, me and JFAR are not the exact same person, as I am a huge Mike Evans, Tedero McMillan fan. But Josh, I think this is the right grouping of wide receivers. I'm extremely high on Tedero McMillan going into next season, despite my hesitation with Bryce Young.
Yeah, I mean, McMillan showed out this year. I think he clearly has top 15 upside going into 2026. Devontae Adams, I think on average was the wide receiver 9 in points per game. Dude scored 14 touchdowns and didn't score a single touchdown in December. Like that is something. Now, again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Matthew Stafford's going to throw for 40 plus touchdowns again. Progression of the mean, people, let's be honest. But knowing that is a possibility, and teams are going to be focusing that much more on Puka Nacua, maybe we get a version of Devontae Adams where he's over
a wide receiver instead of a tight end.
Correct. Yeah. Where, he's putting up the yards and then complementing the touchdowns. Like maybe he regresses to 7 or 8 touchdowns, but sees 850, 900 plus yards, Jameson Williams, ultimate boomer bust. It'll be very interesting to see how he fits in Petzing's offense. DK Metcalf getting a new coordinator, new offensive play caller there with Mike McCarthy. Mike Evans being a free agent. Maybe he returns to Tampa. Maybe he doesn't. Hopefully he plays more than 10 games. But I think as your wide receiver 5, it's a worthy gamble. And then getting Lamar Jackson.
That's where I was going to go, Josh.
At the 10th round. Like, what?
the QB drafting in this draft, I'm going to unhighlight JFAR's team just for a moment. Josh Allen goes in the 3rd. Michael Penix was an auto. No quarterback goes until the 7th, Josh. And then we go a whole nother round. And then we go 2 rounds before we see anyone else go. If this is how drafts go this year, smile on Ryan's face because everyone's finally listening.
Yeah, I mean, you take Penix out of the equation. I mean, Jaden Daniels was the QB5, and I got him in the 10th round.
Yeah.
Like, I will take that all day, every day.
Yeah, obviously I have my hesitations about Kincaid. The last thing I wanted to ask you about JFAR's team, Josh, we both had a lot of hesitation on Quinshon Judkins coming into the 2025 season. There was the holdout, there's the suspension, there's just everything.
Well, potential suspension that didn't come through.
And that's what I was going to ask about is, do we think the NFL is done with this and we're not going to see anything next season? And then obviously we're dealing with the ankle injury.
Honestly, I think at this point, the ankle injury is the more concerning part.
Okay.
Because similar with Cam Scatterbo, you just never know how somebody is going to react to that kind of fracture, that kind of rehab, and then coming back and taking the kind of workload that someone like Quinshon Judkins is likely to see. I mean, Just look at Derrick Henry over the last 2 seasons with Todd Monken, right? Like, we know Derrick Henry's a different kind of animal, right? Yeah. But if, Judkins was drafted to be this sort of bell cow guy with Stefanski's system, they drafted Dylan Sampson as well. Maybe Judkins plays this Derrick Henry type role where we see 250, 270 plus carries. And then Sampson plays more of this like Justice Hill sort of like scat back where they kind of sprinkle him in for 40 to 60 carries, but then he sees 40 plus targets, right? So Judkins then ultimately becomes how revamped this offensive line is literally going to be 5 new starters. Like, they don't have a single guy under contract, if I'm not mistaken. So who do they bring in? How do they react to the system? How many touchdowns can Quinshon Judkins score at that point? So.
And then he grabs Ja'Jarian Price and Blake Corum. So he has some other running backs, and Judkins is his 4th. I think 7th.
Price is probably going to be a top 3 to 5 back off the draft board in this draft class. So I think that's a very worthy draft pick there.
All right, Josh, and then bring us home. As you know, if you've watched this show before, you can talk about as many players as you want or as few as you want. Just kind of what you were thinking when you were making these picks on the turn.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with Bijan. He was my RB1 heading into this season. I think he led the league in total yards from the skill position. So, I mean, score a few more touchdowns, and we're talking about the RB1, right?
Yeah.
We know what Kevin Stefanski likes to do at the running back position. I firmly believe the touchdowns will go up. Tyler Algier being a free agent, maybe he comes back, maybe he doesn't. But I think the safest bet, probably Bijan Robinson heading into 2026. So Rashee Rice this season, look, for as frustrating as that Kansas City offense was, he averaged over 9 targets a game and finished as the wide receiver 4 in points per game. That's worthy of a 2nd-round pick, in my opinion. Chase Brown's a baller. That system's not changing.
Ever.
Zay Flowers, it's going to be interesting how that offense looks in Baltimore, but he showed he's the wide receiver 1 there. So I'm perfectly fine getting him as like a wide receiver 2 in fantasy. Breece Hall is definitely a wild card, but I like him a lot as an RB3 on this team. Jalen Waddle, expecting that, Tyreek Hill isn't there, he gets a bump as a wide receiver 1. So we'll see how he kind of takes that.
Well,
I'll take the injury discount on Terry McLaurin.
Well, I was going to quickly interrupt on Waddle. If you guys saw the Super Bowl poster, Waddle is closest to the trophy. He's this year's Drake May, Sam Darnold.
Could very well be. And if you buy into the color theory, there's a lot of teal and aqua in that.
It's very much
in that logo. So, but yeah, and then honestly, I wasn't purposely targeting this stack, but getting a Terry McLaurin and Jaden Daniels stack. I mean, Daniels coming back from the injury, McLaurin getting work back in. I think there's a definite bounce back there for the Commanders. And again, I've already professed my love for Sam Laporta. I think he's going to be a top 3 tight end this year. And then just taking some value at wide receiver late in the rounds. I didn't mess too much with the rookies, mostly because I haven't dove too far into this rookie class. So I didn't want to sit here and stretch too far. Plus, quite honestly, I don't know what you're getting with rookies outside of the running back position. I feel like rookie running backs tend to hit a lot more than rookie wide receivers do.
Vince says Gibbs over Bijan. That was my early take, Vince. I back off. I'm going back. I think Drew Petzing.
Look, if you tell me that Gibbs finishes as the 1 and Bijan 2, I'm not going to be mad at taking Gibbs at the 101. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Or Bijan at the 101. Sorry.
Or Gibbs. I mean,
it's I think it's a safe bet that either of those guys probably finish there.
That wraps up the 2025 season as far as Club Fantasy is concerned. This was our 2nd way too early mock draft. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. We will have not permanent, but weekly mock draft shows starting back up in April. I give myself a little mental health time for the rest of February and March, but I'll be back in April. I haven't decided day of the week yet. This did really well on Monday, so it may end up being a Monday show. It'll come down to my co-host, but we'll talk about that later. However, if you need your fix, Club Fantasy is still going live every single Wednesday. Josh, what do we got going on this week? I cannot remember already.
So this week we are starting our positional free agency period. So we're going to look at quarterbacks this week, and then we'll break it down running backs, wide receivers, tight ends before we get into the actual opening of free agency and we react to some of the signings. So we'll be looking at, like I said, each position, kind of breaking down the actual free agents, people that we think could be released, people that we think could be traded, and of course, how all of that, the changes in offensive systems and all this kind of stuff could look. So this week we're touching on the quarterback position, and we've got Alfredo Brown coming on board. You guys out there probably remember him from Football Guys, but
yeah,
he recently launched his own company called Front Row NFL. So
with some baller co-hosts.
Absolutely. So. And one of them, Sam Holt, you see on our channel every single Tuesday night. And then the third co-host there, Jagger Maye, you will be seeing him on our airwaves probably sometime in April for our Stars of Tomorrow series.
Huge shout out to Sam fucking Holt and that Super Bowl coverage all over my reels. Just killed it this week. Sam, you are a gem. It is a pleasure sharing airwaves.
Well, not even just Sam. I mean, Kelly
100%
Singh and Rosalie and Renee and the whole Women of Fantasy team absolutely crushed it during Super Bowl Media Week. Yeah. And it was so much fun sifting through all those, all the clips and everything, so we can fire up the Women of Fantasy YouTube page. So if you're not already, give that a follow at women_of_FF over on YouTube.
Yeah. No better place to end it. Jump in the Discord. The link's in the description of this video. Thank you guys for riding with us for 75 minutes. Longest mock draft of the season. I try to keep the show to an hour, but it's the last time we're doing this for a while. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Thank you to everybody who drafted with us. Thank for everybody who rode with us for the 2025 season. We're on to 2026, though we've already been on to that for a month. But it gets real starting this week when we talk free agent quarterbacks. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you in April for mock drafts, on Wednesday for free agent quarterbacks. Have a good night.